Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd. I hope everybody's had a great day so far. Today is the day before the draft, NFL Draft Eve, and we're going to dedicate a lot of time to it. We have, of course, our final mock draft, the only mock draft in the world that's going to be 100% correct. You mark that down. It's here for you coming up in a second. Then we'll get into the playoff action from last night and preview some from tonight. The NBA, the NHL, as well as getting into the top 5 at each of the major position groups in this year's NFL draft. But before we do all of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, April 23rd. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show with the one and only 100% correct NFL mock draft, and we're going to start off with an easy one. At number 1 overall, the Tennessee Titans select their quarterback of the future, Cam Ward out of Miami. This one is a very simple pick. According to Adam Schefter, it's already been set in stone, which, talk about the insiders a little bit. During draft night, we like to turn them off. If you would like to turn them off on draft night and see how correct my draft was, we're going to be doing a live draft show starting at 7:30 tomorrow, so make sure you tune into that. Me and Matt, another show host here at GSMC, will be going over everything throughout the draft, live reacting, so make sure you turn into that. Because at pick number 2, we have our first of a kind of 50-50 on this one, where the Cleveland Browns, I have selecting the best overall prospect in this draft in wide receiver / cornerback Travis Hunter out of Colorado. This one, of course, is going to be a little bit interesting. The Cleveland Browns kind of need everything right now. Getting a guy like Abdul Carter out of Penn State would be huge for them. Putting him next to Myles Garrett, that would be one of the best front 4 in the league immediately. But getting a talent like Travis Hunter is hard to pass up, and everything I've been hearing, it seems like Travis Hunter is a lock to go number 2 overall to the Cleveland Browns, unless, of course, they trade back. But at this point, I just don't think teams are going to be able to trade until at least late in that first round. We're talking around the 20s. At pick 3, the New York Giants select the best player available in edge Abdul Carter, the best defensive player here on the board, unless you're counting Travis Hunter, who can go both ways here in this draft. Abdul Carter is a freak of nature on the edge. He's going to join a really solid pass-rushing tandem that's already set up in New York, pairing him up with Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. That is going to be a very dangerous defensive line for the Giants. The question is, can they do anything with it? The New England Patriots sit at 4, and I could see them trading out of here, but instead I have them taking offensive lineman Will Campbell out of LSU. Will Campbell is the best offensive lineman on the board here. We can talk about potentially Josh Simmons, but he has injury concerns with him, so that's something that I think is going to hurt him a little bit further down the line. I'm taking Will Campbell at number 4 overall to the New England Patriots. At number 5, all of my previous mocks, I had the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting defensive lineman Mason Graham, but all of the noise coming out of Jacksonville's camp right now is they are gung-ho for offense under new head coach Liam Cohen. I'm going to stick that way now. I have him taking wide receiver Tetroa McMillan out of Arizona, the wide receiver 1.5, again with Travis Hunter there. It's kind of tough to rank wide receivers and corners this year, but Tet McMillan is going to be amazing out of Arizona. You pair him with a number 2 next to Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ, and T-Mac. That's going to be a very dangerous combination, and that's exactly what Trevor Lawrence needs. They already have the running backs in place. I've seen a lot of buzz around them potentially taking Ashton Genty, but they have a solid running back room already. They've got ETN back there, as well as having Tank Bigsby, both of whom have shown that they can be successful runners in the NFL. I don't think that I don't think that running back is as huge of a concern for them, and they can get one of those in the second round. I don't think Ashton Genty is really a huge get for them, so I'm having them take Tetroa McMillan at number 5 overall. At number 6, the Las Vegas Raiders locked in with running back Ashton Genty. They know what they want. They brought in Geno Smith. They need a running back for the system under Pete Carroll to run successfully, right? Ashton Genty is going to be that guy. He's exactly what you need out of Boise State. He goes number 6 overall to the Raiders here. Setting up at number 7, probably the most interesting pick of the draft to me. At number 7, the Jets can go in a lot of different directions. The Jets can take an offensive lineman. They can take best available. They can go defense. They can go safety. They can go corner. They can go wide receiver. They can literally do anything here, and it wouldn't be a bad pick. But I have them addressing the offensive line. I have the New York Jets taking offensive lineman Armand Membu out of Missouri. A big guy. Honestly, I don't think he deserves to go this high, but he's a big riser from the combine. He moves fast, he's strong, he's physical, and I think the Jets are going to take him here in the top 10 at number 7. This is one that I think I'm kind of circling to be a bust this year, but the Jets take Membu here to help reinforce that offensive line. At number 8, falling right into their laps, the Carolina Panthers get defensive lineman Mason Graham. He, I think, is the second best defender on this in this year's draft. The third best overall player, if I had to make a big board, is Mason Graham. I love what he does in the middle of the field for Michigan, what he's going to do in the middle of the field for whoever takes him. Mason Graham at number 8 to the Panthers is a steal. That's an excellent pick for them. At number 9, this is where I have the second quarterback off the board in Shedeur Sanders. I've seen a lot of buzz saying the Saints were not interested in a quarterback, but with what's going on, it's kind of hard to run it back with your current quarterback room. You need a real option, and getting a guy like Shedeur Sanders in there, I think, is going to do a lot. Get him in a city like New Orleans, he can handle it. I think it's going to be a great fit down there. He already kind of wears those colors, black and gold in college. It's not going to be too difficult of a jersey swap. I like Shedeur Sanders down in New Orleans. At number 10, the Bears have been rumored to trade up for Ashton Genty. The Bears have been rumored to take a running back here, but I think they finished their offensive line rehaul, taking what I think could potentially be the best offensive lineman in this draft in Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Josh Simmons, I think, is really a big wild card in this draft. I've seen him go as high as 10, where I have him mocked, all the way down to out of the first round, which is really possible. He, of course, has a scary injury right now, but he seems like he's doing a lot better, and I really like what he has. I think he has the ability to be the best offensive lineman in this class overall, and the Bears would get a steal if they're able to get Josh Simmons out of Ohio State at number 10. The San Francisco 49ers are up next, and I think they need a corner more than anything. You can go best available here. There's a lot of great talent available, but also I think the best available might just be Will Johnson. Will Johnson out of Michigan is my pick for the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers, of course, this year need a lot. They lost a lot of talent in the offseason, and getting a guy like Will Johnson to really cover up on the back end is going to do a lot. They lost a very talented corner. Replacing him is going to be huge. I have him taking a corner in Will Johnson at number 11. At number 12, the Dallas Cowboys stick in state and get Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden. He ran an incredibly fast combine time, a very productive receiver at the University of Texas, and we know how Jerry loves his flashy picks. We know how Jerry loves his hometown kids. This is the best of both worlds. Matthew Golden out of Texas goes to Dallas, playing for the Cowboys. At 13, his teammate Jahdae Barron, I have going to the Dolphins. The Dolphins, of course, going to move off of Jalen Ramsey. They need a lot of help. I would have gone offensive lineman if they hadn't had a trade in the works for Jalen Ramsey, but now that cornerback room looks even weaker than the offensive line. They need to address that, getting what I think could be the best corner on the board in Jahdae Barron out of Texas. That's back-to-back Texas picks for you. The Miami Dolphins get a really good one at pick number 13. At 14, it also kind of feels like a lock, but it feels like one of those picks that I think is going to throw a lot of people off. I like the Colts to take an offensive lineman after losing both a starting guard and a starting center, but the options over there just aren't that great after Membu, Campbell, and Johnson, and Simmons, I should say, all off the board before the top before the pick number 14 is on the board. So I have him taking tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State here. He's a do-it-all, kind of Taysom Hill-ish kind of guy. That's the comp for him. He plays everywhere. He's even played quarterback. Tyler Warren is a very great athlete, and getting a guy like that for Anthony Richardson or potentially Daniel Jones, whoever is going to start, is going to be huge. Right now, they're starting Mo Alley-Cox. So I like Mo Alley-Cox, but he's not a serious starting tight end in the league this year. You need someone over there. I have him taking Tyler Warren, who for me probably isn't tight end one, but he is a very versatile guy that Penn State rode all the way to the semifinals. At number 15, Atlanta, the Falcons, they address their biggest need, edge rusher. They go out and they get Mike Green out of Marshall. Mike Green out of Marshall, I think, is probably the best pass rusher here. I really like what he's able to do. Again, I know he played at a Sun Belt school against Sun Belt competition, but he's able to put up these numbers with the best of them. I really like what he brings to the table, and the Falcons just need production at the edge position, and Mike Green is going to be able to bring that to you. The Arizona Cardinals follow up with another guy who had a lot of production, this time at Boston College, with edge rusher Donovan Ezuraku. Donovan Ezuraku also with 16 and a half sacks on the year. He's a very, very capable defender. I think he's my top 3 edge defenders this year. I have the Cardinals taking him at number 16, a little higher than some other mocks have him, but I've had him here in mocks previously. I think the Cardinals take him when he's here on the board. At 17, the Cincinnati Bengals, don't overthink it. They take a huge need of theirs at linebacker, Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Jalen Walker is a kind of hybrid player. He can play linebacker, can play edge rusher, and getting him in that Bengals system, having him that freedom to play around in a bunch of different defenses is going to be wonderful for them. They need that, especially with what's going on with Trey Hendrickson. Whether or not he'll be back, whether or not he'll be traded is still up in the air. But getting a guy like Jalen Walker that he can either play next to or behind him as a very talented player out of Georgia is exactly what the Cincinnati Bengals need. The Seattle Seahawks thank their lucky stars that they got a pick here. At number 18, they are selecting Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. He's a very capable offensive lineman, someone that can move inside, play guard, or play tackle. They need a fix on that offensive line, and getting a high draft pick at number 18 like Kelvin Banks, who I've seen mocked at number 7 to the Jets. He's someone that could go a lot higher, but I think his spot is here at number 18 to the Seahawks. At 19, another one that I've kind of been very popularly mocking is Jahad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's probably their biggest hole right now. This is a Bucs team that's been very successful. They don't have a lot of holes on their roster, but getting a guy like Jahad Campbell, who's a true athlete, can take over when guys retire and step in right now, immediately be a very productive player. At number 19, I think the Bucs select Campbell out of Alabama. At pick 20, the Broncos on the clock could go in a lot of different directions. They could go and take a tight end. There's a couple great tight ends still available. I see them taking a running back here, though. I have them taking Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. He seems to be that consensus number 2 overall running back in the NFL draft this year. It's a very deep class when it comes to running backs. I've got him in the top 5. Not quite at 2, but Omarion Hampton, I think, is someone that the Broncos could really use in Sean Payton, a physical, strong runner out of North Carolina. I'm having the Broncos take him at number 20. At number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't go quarterback here. There's a lot of buzz around them taking a guy like Jackson Dart or a guy like Jalen Milroe. These 2 quarterbacks that would still be available here, potentially Shedeur Sanders if he was still available here. But I think they address a huge need after letting a guy like Larry Ogunjobi walk. They need a defensive tackle pretty badly. I have them taking the next best defensive tackle in Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. The Steelers address that hole. He's someone that some people are comparing with his teammate Mason Graham. I just don't see that. He's not quite as good there, but that is a really solid pick to fall to you at number 21. At 22, Jim Harbaugh gets another Michigan man in tight end Colston Loveland out of Michigan. The Chargers need pass catchers, whether that's a wide receiver or a tight end. They just need more skill positions. But we know how Harbaugh loves to play. Getting a guy like Loveland, who played in his system before, has some of the best hands in college football. Loveland, I think, is the best tight end in this class. I think he falls to number 22 to the Chargers. At 23, there's a lot that the Packers could do. They could continue their seemingly stand of not taking an offensive weapon at all in the first round, but I think they need to. I have them taking Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. I think he's the best wide receiver on the board left. He's someone that I think I've mocked to the Packers a whole lot over these last couple months, but I really do love this fit. Get him on the inside. When you have Christian Watson healthy again, he can go on the outside. You have Romeo Doubs on the outside as well. That's a really solid group right there. I love Egbuka. He's someone that can step in and immediately pay dividends. At 24, the Minnesota Vikings have Walter Nolan fall to them. He's fallen a lot. I've seen him get some buzz all the way into the top 10. I don't see it. I'm not a big Walter Nolan guy, but he is someone that is supremely talented. He's quick. He's able to get past some blocks, get under the blocks. He's got a low pad level, but I like Walter Nolan to go number 24 out of Ole Miss to the Minnesota Vikings. The Houston Texans probably get their dream athlete at number 25, an offensive lineman Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. Gray Zabel is a guy that can play center. He's a guy that can play guard. He's a guy that can play tackle, all of which they desperately need right now after moving off of basically all the important pieces of their offensive line. That was their biggest weakness last season. They need to address that immediately. Getting a guy like Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State is going to do wonders for the Houston Texans at 25. At 26, I would have the Rams take a tight end if either of the top two guys were on the board. I just can't in good conscience justify them taking a tight end right now when they have that big of a need at corner. There's a lot of great corners available. You have Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. You have Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky. You have Siobhan Revell out of ECU. There's a lot of really great Azari Thomas out of Florida State, right? All these great corners available. I have them picking their favorite. I think their favorite is Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. I could see it going another way, but I think they're taking corner here at pick number 26. Getting into pick 27, I think we start to see a big run on edge rushers. I have Shamar Stewart going here, the darling of the NFL Combine. The Baltimore Ravens need another piece, right? They need more pass rush. They have a solid defense once they brought safety Kyle Hamilton back into that kind of role that he was so successful at last season. Their defense shaped up, but pass rush never hurts. Out of A&M, he is an athlete, and I love this pick for the Ravens. The Detroit Lions also follow suit, getting edge rusher James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. He falls a bit. He was in the top 10 in the beginning of my mocks, but that's okay. This is the only mock that really matters, right? The Detroit Lions get another guy to pair alongside of Aiden Hutchinson. They had a lack of depth last year. They needed to go out and get a guy. I think he's the best available at this position, and I think that's where the Detroit Lions go. The Commanders also get an edge rusher at pick 29 in Mykel Williams out of Georgia. Mykel Williams is another guy that I've seen mocked all the way up into the top 10. I've seen him mocked all the way out of the first round. I think the Commanders are a good fit for him. He's a big physical guy. He's fast, and I think they need some pressure off the edge. They need a lot of things on defense. They went and shored up the interior defensive line a little bit. Getting some edge rushers, I think, is their biggest need right now. Same thing with the Bills. I have them taking edge rusher Nick Scourton out of Texas A&M. He's a name that's kind of started to crawl back into the first round. He was in my very first mock draft, disappeared after that, but I love what he brings to the table. He and Shamar Stewart were a deadly duo at Texas A&M last year. I think both of them go in the first round. The Buffalo Bills get their guy on the edge. More pass rush never hurts. The Kansas City Chiefs need one thing and one thing only, but that one thing really isn't there. I still have them reaching a little bit here. I have them taking offensive lineman Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon. He's not necessarily my favorite pick, but he is by far the best offensive tackle left on the board. The Kansas City Chiefs really just need one thing. They just need an offensive lineman, and having Josh Connerly Jr. there, even if it might be a bit of a stretch, he's someone that has first-round ability, and I think they desperately need to address that position, so they take the tackle out of Oregon. And wrapping up our perfect, 100% correct mock draft, the Philadelphia Eagles get a gift to replace CJ Gardner-Johnson in safety Malachi Starks out of Georgia. He's my favorite safety in this draft. He's up there in the overall defenders in this draft, but there's just kind of not that much of a premium at safety. There's a lot of teams that would just say, hey, we'll get a safety later in the draft in the second round. We don't need to spend a first-round pick on him. There's a lot of other players that we could spend our first-round pick on, a lot of more premium positions. Positional value is a real thing. The Philadelphia Eagles get their guy at 32 in Malachi Starks. He finishes out our mock draft. Number 32, Malachi Starks. We'll run it through real quick, the top 10 for you. Cam Ward to the Titans, number 1. Number 2, Travis Hunter. The Giants take Abdul Carter at 3. The Patriots, Will Campbell at 4. Tetroa McMillan, 5 to the Jags. 6, the Raiders select Ashton Genty. The Jets select Armand Membu at number 7. The Panthers select Mason Graham at number 8. The Saints select Shitter Sanders at number 9, and the Bears select Josh Simmons to round out the top 10. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who are your top 10? What is your mock draft? Who do you have your team taking? Who do you want your team to take? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, we will be live during the draft, starting at 7:30 Eastern Time, 30 minutes before the draft begins. Me and a couple other show hosts from the GSMC network will be streaming the draft all day long. Make sure you tune in for that. I can't wait to see you then, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the playoffs because it's not just draft season, it's also playoff time. We have not one but 2 leagues with playoffs going on. We're going to dip our toes into NBA playoff action, talk about what happened last night with Luka Doncic and the Lakers evening the series, as well as what's happening tonight and what will go on tonight between the Rockets and the Warriors. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over the 100% correct mock draft for the NFL as draft day is tomorrow. Remember to tune into our all draft long stream for day 1. Can't wait to see you there. In this segment, we turn our attention to basketball. The playoffs are going on. We talked a lot about football today, but there's going to be some basketball action that's happening right now and more tonight. An awesome game between the Warriors and the Rockets. We'll talk about that, the action last night, and much more. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, April 23rd. But like I was saying, we are going to get into what's going on in the NBA. We'll start off with the action from last night, and what a better place to start than Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers. Luka goes for 31 points, his second straight game at 30 points. He is an absolute menace when it comes to playoff action. The Lakers win this game in a little bit of scary fashion, 94-85. Neither team could really make a shot at the end of this game. The Lakers were incredibly hot in the first half. In fact, at one point, they were shooting 61% from the field right before halftime. The Timberwolves just couldn't shoot. Obviously, they win game one shooting 50% from the three, making 21 of 42 shots. That wasn't going to happen again. We saw Julius Randle have a really solid playoff game, having 27 points in this one. But it didn't matter. They shot 21% from three. That just isn't going to do it. They need to shoot a little bit better than that. 38% from the field also isn't going to do it, and we really see that based on the score. There wasn't some kind of incredible defensive effort like we saw in Game 1 between the Warriors and the Rockets that led to this point. These two teams just couldn't hit their shots, and it leads to a final score of 94-85, with the Lakers tying the series up in kind of what felt like a must-win game. If they had lost this game, going down 0-2, traveling to Minnesota in a very raucous environment, say what you will about Minnesota sports, they care. Minnesota sports have dealt with a lot of heartbreak, but they are back every single time cheering on their team. It was not going to be a good spot for them. Anthony Edwards, once again, had a very good game, right? Anthony Edwards, not necessarily the greatest game, but you can't really shut down a guy like Anthony Edwards when he's going to the rim, when he's getting his stuff done. 10 for 22 isn't the most efficient, but he finishes with 25 points, 6 rebounds, and only 1 foul. Right, Julius Randle was their leading scorer in this one, but what really hurts them was Dante DiVincenzo in foul trouble. He was only able to play 16 minutes. Nickeil Alexander-Walker wasn't really hitting his shots like he was last time, and that was kind of the story in this one. It's not going to be like Game 1 every game. It's not going to be like Game 2 every game. It's going to find somewhere in the middle. We'll find a normal basketball game between these two at some point, but that was a huge win for the Lakers to tie it up at 1 apiece. The other two games last night just weren't really that close. The Thunder dominated the Grizzlies yet again. They took a 2-0 lead. It kind of felt like they were coasting in the second half as the Grizzlies kind of made it look a little closer than it was with the final score of 118-99. But the Grizzlies are just done. They're not making any kind of noise in the playoffs, and this is a huge blow to them. They had a lot of momentum heading into the season, heading really down to the stretch of the playoffs, and then obviously the coach getting fired, all the wind out of their sails. But the Pacers and the Bucks game wasn't necessarily the worst. The Pacers controlled the game all night. The Pacers had the lead the entire game. They started on an initial 8-0 run. They end up winning this game by 8 points, 123-115. They're up 2-0 in the series. The big story with this one was the return of Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard, we kind of expected him not to be 100%, but he was not exactly great. 14 points, 7 assists on 4 of 13 shooting. The reason this game was close was not because of Dame. It was because Giannis, of course, 34, 7, and 18. But Bobby Portis off the bench had a double-double. 28 points, 12 rebounds for him. This is exactly what they needed to do if they wanted to stay in it. They made it a game towards the end, like I thought they were going to after halftime, when going on a 13-0 run late in the game to make the score 115-113. But that was as close as they were going to get. At the end of the day, the Bucks just could not stay hot as well as they were, as hot as they were. Tyrese Halliburton had a big one, 21 points, 12 assists. Siakam had a double-double, 24 points, 11 rebounds. The two of them combined just a little bit too much for this team. Benedict Mathurin had 14 points off the bench as well, a solid game for him. This is a Pacers team that just has too many contributors from too many places for the Bucks to be playing at a not elite level like this with the little amount of contributors that they have. They need a little bit more. As far as tonight's action goes, there are 3 games. We'll start off with the game that just came out of halftime. It was a 3-point game at halftime, the Magic and the Celtics. Of course, the Celtics playing without star player Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, he's someone that they can win games without. This is a good Magic team, and we're seeing it. It's only a 7-point game right now. but the Magic also just don't necessarily have the greatest shot makers. Paolo Banchero is a little bit inefficient. He's not taking the greatest shots, and he's someone that they need to step up. Jaylen Brown has 20 points already right now. Franz Wagner with 16. This is a close game, but the Magic just have not scored out of the break, which is kind of exactly what happened last time. They kept it close, but right now shooting just 20% from three isn't going to do it. They need to shoot a little bit better than that. It's not happening right now. They maybe can keep it close, but I just don't have a lot of hope for this Magic team to win this series, even without Jason Tatum. Same thing can be said about the other game currently in action, the Heat versus the Cavs. The Cavs have a 17-point lead now, 61-44, just about 4 minutes until halftime. They're going to continue to dominate this team. The Heat just don't have the guns to compete with this Cleveland team. Jarrett Allen and Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and all of these guys, Evan Mobley, of course, stepping up when they need him, when they need to. They're getting lots of production off of the bench as well. Right now, the Cavs' leading scorer is Max Strus, followed by Evan Mobley. None of their stars are in double digits other than Evan Mobley right now, but you still have 61 points. It's just an even spread of all of these guys coming in, playing efficient basketball. They're shooting 65% from three right now. There's nothing you can do about that. This Heat team just doesn't stand a chance tonight. It's a shame because this Heat team just shouldn't have made the playoffs. But the real game tonight to watch kicks off at 9:30 between the Warriors and the Rockets. This one is a must-win game, kind of like what we were talking about with the Lakers last night. This game is a must-win for the Rockets. If the Rockets do not win Game 2, they're going to be down 0-2, going back to Golden State. This is a veteran team. This is a loud environment. This is a team that's on the tail end of a dynastic run with Steph Curry and playoff Jimmy. This is not going to be easy for a young Rockets team to come back, but we saw some glimpses of a team that could compete, right? They ended up losing last game by 10 points. They were down 20 at some point. But the difference was they weren't hitting their shots. They can't have a game like that. They need to shoot better than that. I can't imagine they'll shoot worse than that. That's always a possibility, though. That is going to be the big question. Can the Rockets offense step up? Because these two defenses, they're going to do their thing. Steph, he's going to do his thing. Jimmy, he's going to do his thing. I'm taking the Rockets in this one. They've just got a little bit too much on their plate, a little bit too much juice to lose this one at home. The way that they were able to crash the boards, get those rebounds with Steven Adams and Alperen Şengün, the way that Şengün played in Game 1 really gives me a lot of hope. Again, I don't think Van Vliet's going to shoot 4 for 19 every single game. I don't think that Jalen Green and Amen Thompson are going to combine for 15 points in every single game. I just don't think they're going to have that kind of lack of offense every single game. And with the way that Alperen Şengün is playing, they needed him to have a great series. He just needs to keep that up, and I think the Rockets will be able to take care of business in Game 2, make this a close series as they head over to Golden State. But that is a huge, huge matchup to watch. Draymond Green versus Alperen Şengün, potential defensive player of the year versus a really talented young Rockets squad and a very talented young Rockets all-star. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of the games last night, the Lakers getting a win? What do you think of the games today and tonight going on right now? I'd love to hear what you think. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the other league in the playoffs right now, that being the NHL. The Maple Leafs got their overtime winner, a hero from Max Domi. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the other action from last night, as well as the action going on right now, as a couple games have already tipped off. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, Now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over all of the action from the NBA last night, as well as the action going on tonight, and previewing the Rockets and Warriors Game 2. In this segment, we do a very similar kind of talk, this time about the world of hockey. We'll go over all the games from last night, as well as the games tonight. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, April 23rd. But like I was saying, we are going to get into what's going on the ice. The NHL playoffs also hot going on right now. We'll talk a little bit about the action from last night, starting off with the first game where the Hurricanes extended their lead 2-0 on the series with a 3-1 victory. Of course, one of those on an empty net, one of those coming shorthanded, so they kind of canceled each other out. The Devils came out hot in this one. They were shorthanded. They didn't have the players they needed. Luke Hughes out in this one. He was the third highest minutes getter for them last in game one. They came out exactly what they needed to. They were physical. They were fast. They got the first goal. Then they were shut down. The Hurricanes came back in this one, and it doesn't feel like the Devils really have a shot right now. It kind of feels like those 1-8 matchups in the NBA right now. The Hurricanes, a very talented team. The Devils are just a little bit too injured right now to really stand a chance against a very, very good Canes squad. Coming back to New Jersey, though, give them some life. Things can still happen. The next game up was between the Maple Leafs and the Senators. This one went to overtime. You can't have a boring day in hockey, right? The Maple Leafs and Senators, the Battle of Ontario. These two teams, not very big fans of each other. Of course, the Maple Leafs dominated them 6-2 in game one. It seemed as if it was going to start that way again. John Tavares had 2 points in the first period, extending a lead to 2-0. And that lead held for a long time, but the Senators crawled their way back. Linus Ullmark stepped up. He locked down for the rest of the day. The Senators forced overtime, tied at 2, where Max Domi was the hero for the Leafs. Late into the period, Max Domi finds a space in the slot, gets a pass, spits it right past Linus Ullmark to give them a 2-0 commanding series lead. Now, it's not necessarily the kind of lead that the Hurricanes have. I know game one was super lopsided, a lot like the Canes Devils, but this one went to overtime. There's a little bit of momentum there for the Senators. They've shown that they can hang tough with this Maple Leafs team, but the way that Stolarz is playing, it's not going to be easy. I love how physical the Senators team is. I love how tough that they're playing this Maple Leafs squad, but they need something badly. They need something to go their way. They have some life now, heading back to Ottawa. They've got a shot in this series, but that game wasn't exactly what they were looking for. It kind of felt like they needed to tie this series up if they had a shot of really winning. They have a shot to compete, but winning, it just doesn't feel like it's in the cards right now for the Sens. The other two games last night weren't necessarily that close. The Panthers, in the last series to puck drop, the Panthers destroyed the Lightning in the Battle of Florida 6-2. The Panthers now have a 1-0 lead in that series. They just were dominant in all aspects of that game. Physicality, obviously scoring, offense, defense, puck time, opportunities, goaltending. All of this was better for the Panthers in game one. I think the Lightning ultimately come back and win this series, but that was a very, very strong showing from the Panthers, and it's not going to be easy, even if it is a rivalry series. And the final game from last night, very similarly, the Wild came out and dominated. An 11 p.m. Eastern start time is kind of crazy, but the Wild needed it. They came out fast in that one. Kirill Kaprizov, star player for the Minnesota Wild, finished with 3 points in this one, 2 goals and an assist. Over the first 2 games of this series, he already has 5 points, 2 goals and 3 assists. Last game was very close, game 1. If the Wild keep playing like this, they could put the Knights on upset alert. The late night game really did wonders for the Wild. We'll have to see if they're able to keep it up as the series heads over to Minnesota now. This is going to be really close. Minnesota, a wild card team right now. They're not playing like it. They're playing like they were in the beginning of the season, and this is going to be a really, really fun and competitive series to watch. But today, there's a couple games still to go. One game is already tipped off as the Capitals and the Canadiens go for game 2. Right now, the Caps up 2-1 with about 5 minutes to play in this game. The Capitals won last time with Alex Ovechkin being the hero in overtime, his first ever overtime goal in the playoffs, which is crazy to say for a guy that owns the record for most goals ever scored in the NHL. But the Capitals, they are dominating right now. Shots are 26-10. Both of these teams incredibly physical with one another. But this one in Washington, it's very similar to the way it was going. Right now, the Montreal Canadiens have a goal already. The only difference right now in this one from last time, I don't feel like this one's going any other way. I think the Caps are able to take this one. They were minus 195 favorites to win it, so it's not that crazy, but I'm taking the Caps to finish this game off, although I do think that the Canadiens can absolutely still make this interesting, as the Caps are a little bit shorthanded when it comes to the defense. 2 games tonight, a Game 3 and a Game 2, between two teams that really don't like each other. The Stars and the Avalanche and the Oilers and the Kings have matched up a couple times in a row now in the first round of the playoffs. The Stars, Avs, they've moved on to Game 3 already, which is kind of crazy the way that the schedule works in the NHL playoffs. That game, puck drop, is at 9:30 p.m., but the big story with that one is the return of the captain of the Avalanche, Gabriel Landeskog. Landeskog has missed the last 3 seasons with a knee injury. He hasn't played since he lifted the Stanley Cup Finals. Now he's back in a very important game in front of the home crowd. He's expected to play. Haven't heard an update if it's 100%, but that is going to be a huge pop from the fans over there in the Avalanche building. That, I think, gives the momentum to the Avs. I think they take this one in a close one. I think Gabriel Landeskog's return is going to be exactly what they need to push over the top of the Dallas Stars. But in a rematch from Game 1, the Oilers and the Kings, the craziest game of the playoffs so far, a 6-5 barn burner, where we saw the Kings take the victory at the last second after the Oilers came back from down 4 goals. That one puck drops at 10 p.m., another much-watched game. I just think the Kings can't stop the momentum that the Oilers built. We saw them with Connor McDavid score 2 goals in 36 seconds down the stretch there. It's a shame they weren't able to pull that game out with the way they played, but the Kings, they stepped up at the right moment, got the latest game-winning goal, I should say, in the history of their storied organization. I'm taking the Oilers to tie this series up at 1. I'm taking the Avs to take a 2-1 series lead, and I'm taking the Caps to finish this one off, expand their lead to 2-0. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the games in the NHL that happened last night? Games taking place tonight. I'd love to hear what you think. When we come back, we turn our attention back to the draft. Our top 5 players at each of the position groups in the offense and the defense is coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the playoffs in the NBA and the NHL. In this segment, we turn our attention back to the draft. The draft in 24 hours just about from now. In this segment, we'll talk about the top 5 at each major position group in the NFL offense side of the draft. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, April 23rd. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the top 5 at each position on the offensive side of the ball in the NFL draft, starting off with the most important position overall, the quarterbacks. At number 5, we'll start off strong. Louisville quarterback Tyler Shough. He's an older quarterback, which is the biggest knock on him. I don't really have a first round grade on Tyler Shough, but Tyler Shough is someone that has the arm talent. He's the most NFL ready guy right now out of everyone in the class, but he is a little bit older. There are plenty of concerns, injury history with him. He's still a solid quarterback. I've got him as number 5 in this year's draft. At number 4 is where we start to get to the first round rumors. Not really those first round picks, I think, but a first round rumor. And I have Jackson Dart here at number 4. I've seen him mocked as high as number 4. I've seen him not mocked at all. Of course, I don't have him mocked in my draft, which means he's not going to go, of course. But he's still someone that's tall, has a cannon for an arm. He's just someone that I don't really trust in the grand scheme of things. I don't think he's quite ready. But if you get him in the right system and you develop him, he could turn into something. At number 3, my QB3 in this draft, I've got Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders at QB3 for me might feel like blasphemy. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks ever in college football. A 74% completion percentage is crazy, but he holds the ball a little bit too long. He isn't really the greatest athlete, and he's not going to be able to avoid sacks like he did in college in the NFL, which is kind of the same problem that Caleb Williams ran into, but he just doesn't have the same arm talent as Caleb Williams, and because of that, Shedeur Sanders, I think, is my 3rd quarterback in the NFL draft. My number 2 quarterback, also not quite ready. Jalen Milroe, though, is someone that could turn into something crazy. I am a sucker for these guys with physical tools that can run the quarterback, that can run the ball as a quarterback, right? We talk about Josh Allen. That one was correct. We talk about Anthony Richardson. I'm going to say jury's still out on him, but probably that one didn't work out. Jalen Milroe, I think, falls into a very similar category. He's a very talented runner. His arm is just a little bit inaccurate. He's got incredible arm talent, though, and I love what he could become. He's not ready to be a starter in the NFL, but again, you get him in the right system. You develop him, he could turn into something very, very special immediately. I love him. He's my QB2 in this draft. My QB1, though, shocking. I know, it's Cam Ward. Cam Ward, his pocket presence, I think, just puts him above and beyond everybody else in this draft by about 50 million miles. I got Cam Ward as my QB1. But moving on to the running backs here, this is an incredibly deep class. You have probably 10 running backs or so that I think are worth getting drafted, at least more so that will be taken in the undrafted side of things. But my RB5 is Damian Martinez. Damian Martinez out of Miami is incredibly talented. He's someone that's big, physical, and can run through anybody. He's my RB5. My RB4 is Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. You could go either way with him or Quinshon Judkins. I like both of them, but I think his receiving upside is a little bit more for Travion Henderson, and because of that, he falls into my number 4 slot. My RB3 is Omarion Hampton. I love Omarion Hampton. He's a big physical runner. He just doesn't quite have the burst that I'm looking for out of North Carolina. He's still someone that I think will go in the first round, though. Number 2, you're talking about a big physical guy that can break tackles and has burst. That's Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State, someone that found his way late into the Heisman race. Cam Skattebo is my RB2. He's not getting that first-round buzz for some reason, but I do really love what he can bring to an NFL team. And my number one running back, guess, it's Ashton Jeanty. He is one of the best running back prospects we've seen maybe ever. Definitely since Saquon Barkley and Adrian Peterson. He is incredible what he's able to do, breaking tackles, getting into open space. He has the ability to be a pass-catching back. We didn't see it last year, but still, Ashton Jeanty, runner-up to Heisman, is my RB1. When we get to the wide receivers, it's a little weird. Travis Hunter, I am putting as a wide receiver and a corner. He'll be in both of my rankings, but we'll start off at number 5. Luther Burden, the third out of Missouri, is my wide receiver 5 right now. He's a very talented player. Again, all of these guys are in my top 5. I love what he's able to bring as a slot receiver. He's got a really good route tree. Luther Burden, I just think out of all the receivers, is the one that will slide out of the first round. At number 4, I'm taking Matthew Golden out of Texas, a very fast, speedy guy that has really good hands. I think he might be the first or second wide receiver drafted, the way that the draft is falling and the way that his name has been rising. But he's my wide receiver 4 overall. Still very good, but there's a very talented wide receiver class, as it always seems to be. Emeka Egbuka, the leading receiver in the history of Ohio State, is my wide receiver 3. He can do just about everything. He's completely NFL ready. He's got the hands. He can play in the slot, can play in the outside. I love what he's going to be able to bring. His versatility is the most important thing. He's my wide receiver 3. T-Mac, Tetroa McMillan, is my wide receiver 2 out of Arizona. A big, tall guy. He's gotten comps to everyone from Mike Williams to Megatron. He's someone that can have a huge impact. I've also seen him be compared to Quentin Johnston, so there's levels to this. But I love what he can bring out of Arizona. He's a very tall, very talented player. He's number 2. And at number 1, we have Travis Hunter. He's the best wide receiver in the nation, the best wide receiver on the board. He's going to get drafted like it. Out of Colorado, he's got some of the best hands in the country. He's got some of the best ball skills in the country. I love what he brings to a team, and I think he'll be a primary wide receiver in the NFL more than a cornerback, which is not what I've seen in a lot of places. I'm taking Travis Hunter as my wide receiver 1. Rounding out the skill positions group, we're getting to the tight ends. Now, there aren't really 5 top-tier tight ends. I am putting, though, a couple of really solid tight ends here. At number 5, Oronde Gadsden II out of Syracuse. Maybe not a name you've heard, but if you've watched any Syracuse football last season or even in the seasons past, he is a big guy, very good on blocking as well. He's kind of that dual threat guy, going to get picked later in the rounds, maybe round 5, round 6 kind of situation, a day 3 pick, but he's going to be a pretty solid backup tight end, or maybe working his way up to a starting tight end. I love what he did for the Orange last year. Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green seems a little closer to a wide receiver than a tight end. He doesn't quite have that blocking ability, but he's very similar to Tyler Warren in that fact. He's my tight end 4. At Bowling Green, he set basically every single record for a tight end. He was the best tight end in the country by just purely stats. I love what he's able to bring to a football field as a wide receiver. He's a very dangerous player. My number 3 tight end is Tyler Warren, and I know that might be a little low for him, but I just don't love what he brings as a blocker. Tyler Warren out of Penn State, he just feels like a bigger Taysom Hill to me without having that real throwing threat, and I think that's how he'll be played. He'll still get drafted in the first round because Penn State's offense ran through him, but I don't know how well his game is really going to translate to the NFL. My number 2 tight end is Mason Taylor out of LSU. You talk about a dual threat, that's Mason Taylor. He can block, he can catch. He's a very solid receiving tight end. He's another guy I don't think will go into the first round. We've heard some buzz around his name, though, so maybe potentially at the end of the first round, maybe the Rams grab him at 26. But my number 1 tight end, by really a large margin, is Colston Loveland out of Michigan. He has some of the best hands in the entire nation. It got hidden this season because of the quarterback situation he was in, maybe the worst in the Power 5, definitely the worst in the Big Ten, I think. It's just not a good spot for him. I love what he brings to the table as a blocker, as a receiver. He was their leading receiver last year, although, again, that didn't mean much in Michigan's offense. I love Colston Loveland. He is my tight end 1 by about a mile yet again. The final offensive position group to go over, though, is the offensive line. We're not going center, guard, tackle. We're just putting them all together into one jumbo group. And at number 5, we have Jared Wilson, the center out of Georgia. He's only allowed 2 sacks his entire career. He's a big, strong, physical guy. I love what he brings to the table. He's my number 5. At number 4, I'm taking Kelvin Banks Jr. Back into those those first round kind of talks. Kelvin Banks Jr. can really play anywhere. Guard, tackle, center. Not really center, but guard, tackle. Is very versatile. He's a big body, and I think he'll do really well in the NFL. Armand Membu, you want to talk about big body, is my offensive lineman number 3 in this draft. I love what he brings. He didn't really impress me too much on tape, but he's an athlete among offensive linemen, and I love what he can do on your team there if you get him in the right system. At number 2, I'm taking a risk on this. I'm putting Josh Simmons here. Josh Simmons out of Ohio State is dealing with that patella tendon injury, that knee injury that's kind of held him out all season. That's the big question mark with him, but he has the talent to be the best offensive lineman in this draft. I've got him at OL 2. And of course, that leaves Will Campbell as my offensive lineman number 1. He didn't allow a single sack at LSU over his tenure. Will Campbell, very, very, very talented. He'll get drafted super high because of what he's done, regardless of his short arms, which didn't seem to be a big issue against the SEC and NFL level competition. I'm taking Will Campbell as my offensive lineman at number 1. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who are your top 5 at each position? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we take a look at the top 5 for the defense at each position. Edge, defensive lineman, cornerback, safety, and linebacker. That's coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd, one day before the NFL Draft. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the top 5 at each major position group in the NFL offensive side of the draft. In this segment, we do the same thing with the defensive side of the ball. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, remember, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, April 23rd. And a reminder, we will be live for the draft on draft day. Round 1, me and Matt, co-host here on the GSMC Sports Network, will be live for all of round 1 at 7:30, so make sure you tune in for that. But before we get to that, we have to get to our defensive side of the ball. We went over the top offensive players in the draft in the last segment. Now we take a look at the top defensive players, and we'll start off at the edge position. Of course, edge number 1 is going to be Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is the best edge defender, probably the best defender in this draft overall, but it's not by as wide of a margin as you might think. I think there's a couple guys in this draft that are pretty close to him, including number 2 and 3 in Mike Green out of Marshall and Donovan Ezuraku out of Boston College. They have more numbers than Penn State's Abdul Carter, but both of them didn't quite play against the same competition. I think Mike Green at edge 2 and Ezuraku at edge 3 both have the ability to be game changers in the NFL, but I like Mike Green's I like his pure pass rush ability just a little bit more than Ezuraku, and because of that, he's my edge 2. My edge 4 is Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart, just an athletic freak of nature out of Texas A&M. He flew up draft boards in the beginning of the draft process. He's kind of water finding his level a little bit more now, but out of Texas A&M, he's going to make a very, very happy team wherever he gets drafted. And edge 5 for me is James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I understand there are concerns with him, but he continues to stay in that first round for a reason. He was mocked in the top 10 at the beginning of the year. He fell a little bit, but he's my edge number 5. I really do love what he brings to the table. At defensive line, it's also an incredibly deep class. At number 1, it's Mason Graham far and away. I've heard some people say it's his teammate Kenneth Grant, but it's not. Mason Graham is the second best defender in this class behind Abdul Carter. He arguably could even be the best defender in this class. He is someone that I think cannot be drafted high enough. I love Mason Graham. He is the number 1 defensive lineman in this draft. At number 2, defensive tackle, it's Kenneth Grant, his teammate. So you're not too far off if you're trying to make that argument that Grant is better than Graham, but he just isn't. Mason Graham's a bigger guy. I really love what Kenneth Grant brings in his own. At number 3, we're bringing Derek Harmon out of Oregon. DT3 Derek Harmon. He is someone that I really do love. That pushes Walter Nolan down a little bit, who's my DT4. I've heard some buzz around him going in the top 10, but Walter Nolan is someone that I'm just not a huge fan of at the end of the day. Out of Ole Miss, he's my DT4, and there's a lot of guys that could be DT5, but I went with Darius Alexander out of Toledo. He had one of the top run blocking grades by PFF in the entire draft, an overall 90.4 in that elite section. I love what Darius Alexander brings as a big body, especially against the run, which is going to be the primary goal of any defensive tackle in the league nowadays. Darius Alexander is my DT5. Getting to the cornerbacks, again, I talked about it in the first segment we did, but Travis Hunter does count as both a wide receiver and a corner, and we'll be ranking him separately. He is my CB1. Travis Hunter won the best defender in all of college football award for a reason, right? He's incredibly talented. He's got that ball skill. He's very good at tackling in open space. He's just got the instincts and the vision to be a very, very good corner. He might be a better corner than a receiver. He's going to play both ways in the NFL, though, and I can't wait to see how that goes. He's CB1. CB2, though, is Jahdae Barron out of Texas. I love Jahdae Barron. He's a big, physical, and fast corner. Exactly what you need. He's got a bit of a boxing background, so he's very good with his hands. Jahdae Barron is the exact kind of corner that I'm looking for in that 10 to 13 kind of range, where I think we'll start to see a little bit of a run on corners. At number 3, Will Johnson. The only reason he's a little bit lower on this list for me than some other people is some injury concerns. He's still going to go in the top 15. Will Johnson out of Michigan is CB3. Again, a big, physical, tall, very talented corner, but I just don't think he's quite there with Travis Hunter and Jahdae Barron. Siobhan Ravel out of ECU is my CB4. There's a couple other guys that you could have ahead of him. Trey Amos, you could have Maxwell Harrison, Azari Thomas, these guys that have had really good seasons at their respective colleges, but Siobhan Ravel, similarly dealing with an injury, did not play. I think he is an incredibly, incredibly talented corner right now, and he's someone that I think is going to be a steal for somebody in the second round. My CB5 in this draft, though, that goes to Trey Amos. I love what he brings in Ole Miss. Again, big, physical guy. I love speed in a corner, but it's not the most important thing. You need to just have the ability to keep up with these receivers. As long as you can do that, I don't care if you run a 4-2. I love what Trey Amos can bring in coverage, in zone, and man, and because of that, his versatility, I have him as CB5. Moving on to the secondary partners of the corners, the safeties. There's a lot of good safeties in this class. I've got Malachi Starks as my safety number 1 out of Georgia. He's someone that I think will go in the first round. Not something we see a lot of safeties do, although we've started to see it be a trend a little more recently after guys like Kyle Hamilton went out of Notre Dame. At number 2, I've got Andrew Makuba out of Texas. I love what he brings. Big physical hitter. He's got the ability to play very solid coverage out of Texas. He's my safety number 2. My safety 3 is Xavier Watts, and you might be asking, where's the big name here? But Xavier Watts, I think, is just the whole package at safety. He's got the ball skills out of Notre Dame. He stayed an extra year so he could learn to be a little bit better in coverage and tackling, and he absolutely nailed that, leading Notre Dame's defense all the way to the college football finals. At number 4, this is the name you've been looking for, right? Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina. He's a physical freak, no doubt about it. I just don't love what he does in coverage. He's not the greatest cover safety, and he's been burned a couple times trying to guess what's going to happen in the pattern and it not working out. At number 5, though, I've got R.J. Mickens out of Clemson. Talk about coverage. He's got that in the bag. He's probably one of the best coverage safeties in this class right now. I love what R.J. Mickens brings. But the final group of 5, we're moving on to the linebackers. A very talented linebacker class, starting with number 1, Jalen Walker out of Georgia. He's kind of cheating. He's a mix of a linebacker and a edge rusher, but he's listed as a linebacker here, so I'm taking Jalen Walker as the best linebacker in this class, followed by Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. These two guys really could be interchangeable. I like Jalen Walker a little more because of his versatility, but Jahad Campbell is an incredible athlete of his own. Number 3 is Demetrius Knight Jr. out of South Carolina. He's no slouch either. I haven't heard a lot of buzz around him, but he is someone that I think deserves a little bit more respect than he's getting right now. Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss is my linebacker 4. And my linebacker 5, Jalen Walker out of Indiana. A little bit of a smaller guy, but he is a tackling machine. He just has a nose for the football. He has a way of finding it whenever he wants, and he is going to be an absolute demon on the football field for whoever gets him. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who are your top defensive and offensive players at each position? I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow we are doing live coverage of the draft starting at 7:30. Make sure you tune in then. I can't wait to see you for that. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to